Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us here for another episode, wherever in the world you're listening to us from, whatever platform you're listening to us on. Thank you guys so much for the support, the kind messages, and sharing this podcast with those who you know who would be interested in it. Got another really good one here lined up for you today. I know a lot of coaches who I talk to, and I think just coaches in general, really like to maximize the amount of exposure they can get for their program, maximize the amount of exposure they can get for their players, and are always looking for ways to really make sure that their program is seen and that their players are seen. And I thought that topic was one that was definitely worth dedicating a whole episode to, because there's so many great things going on in different people's programs, including you guys listening. A lot of you listening have so many great players that you can spotlight and give attention to. And I want to have that conversation so that you as the listener can take this and have just some ideas or just some new thoughts about how to get the most exposure for your program, for your players, and just highlight all the great things that are going out there in the basketball coaching world. So really excited to talk about this, and really excited to have on the assistant women's basketball coach at Edmonds College. My guest today is Coach Shawn Sims. Coach, thanks so much for joining us. How are you?
Doing great, Mike. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Really looking forward to this one. Like I said, there's just so much good things that are happening out there with programs and players, and it's kind of like everyone is kind of vying to get their program or get their players seen, and it's awesome and it's great, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your ideas, exchanging some ideas, and seeing what you guys at Edmonds are kind of all about. So before we get into all that, Coach, let's go ahead and get started with your coaching journey. Where's the game taken you? Where's your coaching journey taken you, and what led you to Edmonds?
I've always played basketball, always been a part of basketball, ever since I was a kid. Grew up 5 older brothers. Everybody played basketball, so it's just kind of been ingrained in who I am. Went to college in Mendocino College in the Bay Area, and then went to Sonoma State for a little bit out there as well. And then after that, I went to Pioneer High School, started my coaching career, and then kind of just veered a little bit and went and worked at 2K Sports. And at that time, it was a startup. Now it's a huge corporation, gaming corporation. But just, never was too far from the sport. So I did a lot of analytical work for 2K at that point, just to kind of, help them with that. And as I was doing, I just kind of just, fell back in love with just the aspect of being a part of, just basketball again. And so I moved back to the Seattle, Washington area, started doing AAU basketball for Seattle Rotary Style out here, which is, a high-end Nike boys team. So I was doing that. Then I started getting into training as well as doing the Rotary coaching. And then, my journey just, I was doing high school coaching, everything like that. And then my journey took me to where my best friend, Josh McLeod, was best friend since 7th grade. He had an opportunity to take over the Edmonds College team here this past season. And he gave me a call, said, "You want to jump on the saddle and get to work here?" And kind of just, rebrand and get this team going in a positive direction. And so, of course, what opportunity are you ever going to have to hang with your best friend every single day and coach and empower women? Myself, I have 3 daughters. I have a 17 and 16-year-old. So, these, like I tell these recruits that I'm meeting with, this is as much as it's us trying to help them on their basketball journey. It's them helping me as well as a father, because my daughters are right at their age. And so I get to learn, just talking with these girls, I get to learn a lot. And I take all those tips and tricks back to being a dad.
No, that's great. That's awesome. And I really appreciate the passion it seems that you have for the women's game. I'm such a proponent of it as a girls coach myself. And it seems like that's something that means a lot to you. And I wanted to talk about, I know we're going to talk a lot about marketing and highlighting players. So let's kind of talk a little bit about basketball on the court, a little bit of X's and O's about what you like to run at Edmonds. Now, I know that we talked off air that you're kind of reshuffling the deck and you're bringing in a lot of new players here coming in. But what kind of pace of basketball do you and your staff prefer to be playing out there at Edmonds?
Oh no, so Coach Josh and I, we're all about get out and go. We want to be a very fast paced, 94, feet, just full court pressure. Our goal, is to get about 80 points a game. That's where we want to be. Offensively, we like the dribble drive offense. We're big fans of creating isolations, taking advantage of mismatches, creating constant movement. But the most part, for us, we're really big on player development. The reason why we're big on player development is so that when girls are in those isolation situations, that they're able to take advantage of their skill sets. And like I said, we're all about empowering our entire team. So, if a girl gets into it, like if she's going, we're going to take advantage of it. There's a mismatch, we're going to take full advantage of that situation. Like a lot of the girls that we're recruiting are just athletes. They're track stars. One of our girls had a D1 track offer, and she turned it down to come play basketball at Edmonds, which is it's huge. Like they see the vision, they see that what we're trying to do, and it's exciting. And what really got me excited about what we're trying to do was actually watching the Las Vegas Aces and seeing what Becky Hammond's been doing with that crew out there.
Yeah.
I feel like she's bringing a lot of that, and I hate to say it this way, but I just think what it is. I think she's bringing a lot of that men's style of play where it's just like, just get out and just go. And I love it. And one of the local players we have here who played for the Aces, Kelsey Plum, just seeing how her game was ever able to evolve underneath Becky, opposed to with Bill Lambier, who was more of that slow, methodical, let's get inside to Asia, and kind of slowing the game down. Liz Cambage, I love what Becky's doing in Las Vegas, where she's just getting the ladies out, getting them running, getting them hooping. And the beauty of it is we have a bunch of girls who hoop with the men every day at LA Fitness. Like so these girls
awesome.
They're getting out and they're hooping, and it's going to be a beautiful thing next year. I'm excited. We're excited.
So kind of as a follow-up for that, when you guys are doing your recruiting and you're looking at players, are you looking for players that have the potential to fit in that system mostly, or do you specifically search out players who are in systems that are getting up and down and running the floor a lot?
Yeah, no. So that's a great question. So for us, we're looking for the girls who have potential, because I think you're really limiting your scope, and you're limiting ourselves as coaches. If again, we're really big on player development. So so we got to do our job. We have to develop. So basically, we're looking for those lumps of clay. We're looking for girls who want to evolve, who want to get better, who don't have ego. We want the girls who are excited to just come out there and play and learn and get better. And so for us, it's like we're looking more for skill sets. We're not looking for these girls who are very set in this is just what I do, this is what I am, or trying to find girls that fit like this perfect piece. I think that's the beauty of basketball. It's like art. No, there's no such thing as perfection. Out there isn't like that perfect mold. If you would have went back 15 years ago and looked at a guy like Stephen Curry and the way in which he plays, I mean, even look at Gilbert Arenas, how much he was shunned in the way that he would shoot the ball. But now it's like Gilbert Arenas would thrive in today's basketball. So it's like let's be ever evolving. Let's break the mold. Let's have 6-foot girls who people would deem to be a center. Let's have them be our point guard. Let's just see what happens. So for us, we don't look for ready-made. Like I said, I think one of our biggest benefits of who we are as coaches is the fact that we spend countless hours in the gym. We're with our girls more than we are with our families, and so it's like so we're here to develop, and because then as much as we're asking the girls to evolve, we have to evolve as coaches as well. And I think a lot of that comes with the development on the court.
And to follow up with that, I'm curious. I'll ask you about how much of the players is it getting them out of their maybe their comfort zone because you see something in them and you have to kind of work through like any hesitancy or any like concerns or confidence issues if you're asking them to do things differently. Is there kind of like a barrier that you and your staff almost kind of have to push through, especially if you're asking them to do something a little bit different out of their norm?
Every time. And so we have the number one thing that we tell our girls is that we embrace failure. Like we are huge proponents of failure. With failure comes success. So the very first thing that we do is get the girls comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's our number one object. The thing that we're doing with these girls. We play that. There's this Will Smith video. We play it for girls all the time, and it talks about failure. It uses, and I love this analogy. It uses the analogy of when you go into the weight room, you're seeking failure when you're lifting those weights. You're seeking to get to the point to where you can't push anymore. Like that's what you're seeking. And that's what basketball is about. That's what getting life is about. It's about seeking failure to push yourself to those next results, to train your body, to continue to go forward and be able to do more. And so like for us, I think that's always the biggest barrier with these girls is to spend less time. This is one of the things I always say. Let's spend less time focusing on the results and spend more time focusing on our progress, because results are very much either you did it or you didn't do it. Progress is constant. Like you can lose a game. Like my son played in a championship game today and they lost, but there was so much progress that he took from that game that in the end he really won. But if he was just solely focused on the result of it, I don't think that he would have taken the time to be able to recognize like the progress that he made. And then he's going to be able to take that progress and take it into his next game and continue to evolve. So that's all. Like, honestly, that's one of the biggest barriers from especially high school to college. I think these girls are already somewhat doubting themselves just because it's another level, whether it's JUCO, D2, D3, NAI, whatever it might be. It's another level. So there's some form of fear, some form of doubt. And so getting them to move past that and to be willing to fail. And then once they cross that barrier, it's a beautiful thing.
And just kind of wrap up with that thought, is that something that you feel you can sense when you're recruiting somebody, if they have that ability to be okay with failure? Is that something that you can identify right away, or is that something that you have to kind of test once they're in your program to see how well they handle it?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. Like for me personally, one of the things I love to do, and I love to go watch basketball. I love to go watch our recruits play. And I'm not watching for the spectacular plays. I'm watching for how they react to mistakes. I'm watching for how they react when things just don't go quite the way that they thought it was going to go. Do their eyes get big and they look like they're deer in headlights? Does their body? Because one thing I always say that never lies is your body language. What is the body language telling me when things aren't going well? Are you still high-fiving your teammates? Are you still, running with the same energy that you had? A lot of just athletes in general, they have this thing where they wait for something good to happen to determine how their game is going to go. And I think that's probably like one of the worst things that you can do. And so that's kind of like, for me, that's kind of where I first start, is just watching their games, watching their failures and see how they react to it. That tells me a lot about a player. And then, just having conversations with, coaches, having conversations with the player themselves, talk about instances that have nothing to do with basketball when they might have failed. Whether it be something with school, something with life or whatever, and just seeing how they react to it. And then obviously one of the things that we always do when we're fortunate enough to get girls on the campus with us is we do what we call a little shoot around with coaches. And we get on the shooting machine. Coach Josh, our head coach, he's a ridiculously good shooter. Like he'll get on the shooting machine and make 23 deep threes in a row kind of a thing. So we play this game where you take 2 threes. If you make your second three, just keep going until you miss. When you miss, the next person steps up. So it's always myself, Coach Josh, and the recruit. And, no one's going to outshoot Coach Josh. And usually we'll throw the recruit behind Coach Josh. So you're shooting behind Coach Josh. He's made his 2. Now he's made 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you go away from being comfortable of knowing like, okay, I'm about to shoot, to being like, okay, when's this guy going to miss so it's my turn. And then he finally misses. And then it's like, okay, now you get on there. I don't care if you make or miss it. For me, it's just about, you can tell in the sense of like just where they're completely just like, whoa, this is too much for me, And so then what we do is at that point, because it happens to all the girls, where it's like, I don't want to go behind Coach Josh anymore. He's too much. And so what we do then is say, all right, let's not focus on Coach Josh, but instead focus on that shot. Focus on why that shot's going left or why that shot's going right, and make the adjustments. So that way, that tells us how you can handle situations right there. It's like, if you're able to jump, all right, behind Coach Josh, and then you start knocking down, you make 3 shots in a row, or you get 4 in a row, or you get some level where the shots are now online, but it's just, you're just missing. Like, for me, that as a coach, that tells me a lot about a player. Just, we do little things like that where we mess with their minds. Another thing that we do is we'll put the girls 3 feet from the hoop, and then we'll go, all right, you got to make, 5 swishes in a row from the spot until you can move to the next spot. And, you have to make 5 swishes in a row. And so like what happens with that is they'll get 4 swishes in a row, then they will tick the rim. Like, doesn't count. And then it just gets really frustrating. It becomes like a mental warfare type of thing for them. But it's just little things like
That's
that
cool.
where you just little test.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you'll never kind of see that situation when you're even like watching like film or necessarily something like that. So to have like that little thing there and just kind of like see how they react. And I think one of the things that could be like really difficult sometimes, and especially if you're working with players who are playing at the collegiate level, is they're probably in some cases, especially when you're trying to teach them new things, like just so used to being successful and so used
Mhm.
to doing well that I'm sure in some cases when you're trying to get them out of their skill set or out of their comfort zone, it might be like one of the first times and maybe a very long time that they've been challenged to that degree.
Yes.
So that's really cool to see them kind of respond to that level and kind of rise up to it. It's almost like a puzzle they have to solve in a way. That's really cool.
Yep,
Um,
absolutely.
so I know that you're really passionate about the idea of marketing and highlighting players, and that's something that means a lot to you. But I wanted to make sure that before we even got to that, that we discussed what that meant to you. So the idea of you marketing and highlighting your players, let's talk about what that means, kind of like how you do it, and then also why it's something that matters a lot to you. So kind of hit you with all the questions there. So
Yeah.
I'll kind of have you kind of set the stage about what this means and why it's something you're so passionate about.
Yeah. So I'll start with my why. So, like I said, I coach AAU basketball, leading up to this. And when I watch AAU basketball, I'm watching a game that's not about the players anymore. I'm watching a game that's about the coaches. It's about the program. It's about a brand. It's about parents, unfortunately. And I feel like the kids are getting the short end of the stick of it. And unfortunately, it's always been prevalent in the boys' game, but I'm seeing it really prevalent in the girls' game as of late. So for me, when I took this job on, as I said, work in Microsoft, and Microsoft's very much about branding. I work in Xbox, like the branding is huge. And so I asked myself, like, what am I going to get out of this experience? What's going to be for me? And what I realized is I want to put these young ladies out on out in the open, and I want them to get the exposure. And it's really, as it sounds, I want them to get the exposure over the school, the brand itself, over the name Edmonds. I want the players to be able to get that exposure, because that's the thing that's going to help them get on to the next level. Because what I realized is there's just not that many eyes on this game, on this women's game, as much as there should be. There just isn't. There's a lot of really, really talented young ladies who are walking away from the game, and we're seeing it every single day when we're out here trying to recruit, because they're not feeling the love. They're not, these girls have worked really, really hard, and due to, everything that has gone on with COVID, these extra years that seniors are getting, sophomores at the JUCO level, it's really impacting a lot of these young ladies. And so for me, it was, what can I do to put these girls, showcase these girls as best as humanly possible as I can. So some of the things that I do is, one, when we're recruiting girls, I sit there and talk with them on the phone. I'll listen to them, listen to what they're saying. We have one player who is in love with Dennis Rodman. Her guilty pleasure is that she likes Ja Rule. And so what I'll do is after we get done meeting with them, I'll send them a video that I create. And basically in this video, it's, showing the landscape of Seattle and Edmonds, our area. Then I'll throw in a little 2-second clip of Ja Rule talking, or it's just something just to kind of get them excited about the program. But then when these girls actually do commit to us, we create graphics for them, like we create highlight videos for them, like we go out of our way to show like these girls. It's more, yes, it's about showing them love, but it's also about showing. The day that they sign with us, it's like, okay, let's put you out there for these 4 years now. We always say Edmonds isn't a destination. No JUCO is a destination. We're just tools and able to that are allowed to help these girls get onto their 4 years. So the second that they walk on campus, we're going to continue to market them as best we possibly can. And another thing with all colleges is like, what do we have to do? We have to fundraise. I don't want people to fundraise to Edmond College. I want them to fundraise to that girl that they saw the video about, and they saw a 30-second Q&A and about it, and they became attached to her. They like I'm donating to that girl. Number 15, number 10, I'm donating to that girl. Because to me, I think it just means that much more. We all can blindly give to a brand. We do that all the time, but when we're giving to somebody that we feel like we have a connection to, I think that's just special. And I think it's just different. These people come to our games and they pay to come see us play. I want them to have a connection to the team, but I also want them to have a connection to each player as much as possible. Because again, I think it just means more. We really want to build this game, just the women's program in general. And I think it starts with us. I think it starts with us coaches doing things like, we talked about the girls being comfortable with being uncomfortable. For me, like, we have to be okay with being uncomfortable with going outside of just what, our job title says that we're supposed to do. Like, we have to go outside and think outside the box of just ways to elevate these young ladies, to grow this game. Because, the sad part is, the men's side, I always say there's tons of JUCO guys who think they're going to the NBA still, but on the women's side, it's like these girls are just kind of, they don't have that fire, that passion, because I think that you look at it, in regards to making it to the WNBA, because you look at it, there's girls who got picked in the top 8 in the first round who are out, they didn't even make a roster, and it's like that. So a lot of these young ladies are walking away from this game, and so it's like, how can I not only get them excited, but how can I also get the people, give them that exposure and that experience that they deserve from everybody, within our community. And like I said, we're doing a lot of recruiting outside of our state, actually, and so getting those folks back home, the ability to just to see something special for their kids and the people that they've been watching for a while. It's really important.
So you're of the mind, and I do agree with you on this, that this is like a systemic issue, especially on the girls' game in particular, where the players just aren't getting the attention that they deserve to be getting, or as you mentioned, a lot of the especially you said at the AAU level, and I think you said like the programs are the ones that are getting the attention, but not the players themselves. So was that kind of like the real driving force, or kind of like the light bulb moment for that? Or were those experiences kind of not knowing a lot about the players, but just seeing a lot maybe about the programs, if you saw anything at all?
Yeah, I mean, even just within the recruiting aspect of it, it's like, when we recruit high school girls, it's like, we jump on field level, and you might have some coaches who post their girls on there, and oftentimes you see a lot of times where the young ladies are having to post for themselves, and then some situations you have some coaches who give tremendous evaluations, and then you have other situations where it's a one-liner, and so it's just like, for me, that was my light bulb, my responsibility to these girls is to do whatever I possibly can to help them get moved on to a 4-year school where they're getting their college paid for. And then one day they're walking through the halls of Microsoft and they're telling me what to do. Or, like I always tell the girls, like, that's my dream. Like, when I recruit a girl, I'm not sad if I lose out on a girl. Like, you'll see, like, I reach out to every girl that ever lose out and they commit somewhere else. I say, congratulations, great job. I'm happy for you. And that's genuine, because at the end of the day, only thing I'm doing is offering an opportunity. But my ultimate goal for all these young ladies we get to meet and their families is that they get school paid for, that they get to enjoy the college lifestyle, they get to get their degree, and then they get to, have this great life. Like that's all, at the end of the day, I hope that's what all of us college coaches truly want for these young ladies and young men on both sides of the game. Like, it is just, to be able, like, I think it's the most empowering thing to be able to offer somebody an opportunity to go to school. Like, I think that's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's just to give them the chance to, but like you said, you congratulate the ones that don't go to, because they're still took advantage of that opportunity. They're just exploring that opportunity elsewhere, even though you probably would like to have them. It'd be great if you did have them, but they're still getting that opportunity elsewhere. Now that's great. So as we kind of think of like tangibly, so when it comes to like, okay, so if I'm a coach, I'm a whether it's a high school or college coach, and I'm trying to do things differently. I'm trying to market my players differently, highlight my players differently. So I'm not, like everybody else. What are some of the things that I, as a coach, could do that you think, like, a lot of other programs aren't doing those things? What are some things that you think could be posted out there on social media, or could be out there? Is it just posting about our players in general? Are there things that more specifically you think that coaches out there can do that can really kind of make their players stand out more so than what's out there on most things of social media?
Yeah. No, like, one of the things that we're in the process of incorporating on our side as well is just, like I said, little 60-second, just rapid fire questions with players, with the individual player, like spotlighting those players, but don't just spotlight your best player. Spotlight every girl on this team. Spotlight every player that you have, and take the time to create, somebody that people can look to, somebody that they can associate with. I think that's one. Number two is, I see a lot, like when I go onto high school Twitter feeds or high school Instagram pages, unless someone's like, is committed somewhere, I really don't oftentimes see just day to day, just talking about individual players. I see that this team has a game tomorrow at 5 o'clock, but I don't see anything specific to the players in itself. And if it is specific to the players, it's usually because they're the high scorer of the game and things of that nature. I think that oftentimes leads to a lot of diamonds in the rough, sometimes being overlooked, where, there's young ladies who play on teams. We've seen this a lot where, they got multiple D1 players on their team. So they're constantly overshadowed. But when you actually watch the game and you watch them play, you're like, this girl is actually really, really good. And if your coach isn't doing their due diligence in regards to recruiting, those are one of the girls that can just be overlooked really easily. So I think just shining a light on your entire team as individuals in any creative way that you can is huge. Little fun quiz things. Like one of the things that we're doing with our recruits here is, put a show on Instagram, a little pop quiz type thing where there's 4 answers, and the question is, which one of our incoming recruits was the top, the MVP for her volleyball team. Just little things like that, just things, just to kind of teach people about your players and make them more human, and just highlight and spotlight them. Another thing that we do is we record all of our trainings. We record all of our practices, all of our games. And so, just throwing that stuff on there, just throwing, little cool little things on there. The wave now for all these kids is TikToks, and stuff like that. Finding ways to utilize that. I think for me, it's just about creating more content where it's less about just the brand of the school and more about those who are carrying the brand. Like I said, I know it's easy to just focus on the brand as when you're doing your social media stuff, because, I see it. I did it a lot last year where it was just, I was focused on the brand because it's easier. It's easier than trying to focus on 16 other girls, individuals. But it's our job to put in that time to focus on each of these girls as individual and highlight and spotlight them, because we never know what that connection can make. It's like networking. If someone doesn't know who this person is, they're very limited in what can be provided for them in the future. So it's our job to just spotlight them as much as we possibly can, find creative ways. And if anyone out there has additional creative ways, like, let me know. Like I said, because I truly mean this when I say, like, I want to grow this game, and it's not about one program, one team. It's like we all have to put in the work to grow this game. And it's, and the main thing about it is to not just lump everybody into just one box, and to take the time and separate everybody out.
Well, I think one of the cool things, it sounds like you're kind of getting at, it's almost like treating the players on your team like they're, celebrities essentially,
Yes.
or making them feel like, because they are, like, they're part of something special. And I think sometimes we kind of lose sight of that, the exclusivity of whether it's even like a high school, girls basketball team, like that is still something that has exclusivity to it, like not everyone is a part of it, sort of thing, and make it seem like it's something like really, really important and a huge deal. And I think that probably also has the effect of just helping build your program, because you're really emphasizing like all of the great things that your players are doing, and your players get treated really well, and they get seen and they get shown. And I think by extension, that just helps kind of build your overall team as you're spotlighting those players.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, that's 1,000% accurate. Like I said, for me, it's really easy to just try to spotlight the team. But it's like, if you go back and look at Like a perfect example is, like I said, we inherited this team last year as Coach Josh took over. And so, it was rough sledding in regards to last year. And so for me, it was like, we can sit there and just spotlight Edmonds as a team, or instead we can let people know about what's coming. And then as I started to do that, I was like, this has to be the future. This has to be what we're doing, because talking about these individual girls is way more impactful than talking about, like just Edmonds in general. Like the thing that got our recruits excited about next year was us talking about the girls, us talking about what we're trying to build. And so for me, it's like I want to continue to just spotlight that. And like I said, I think we can do a much better job of just, you look across in college basketball, like you see, like I'm a huge fan of the Duke Twitter page. Duke does if you go to their Twitter, like they do a tremendous job of highlighting players. Like you'll rarely see Coach K, in any of the Twitter stuff outside of his last game or the build up towards it, or if he's breaking some type of record. Like you see Paolo Banchero, you go through, you go through the list, and, they have this cool little drone thing that they do, and it's going through the school and to the basketball court and all that. And it's just, you see all the weight room, and it's just all the players. And it's like, that's to me, that's what it's about. Like, and I just absolutely love that. And I just want to mimic that as best I can.
So you talked about the excitement that your players have. What other benefits have you seen with your program, or even for your individual players, through this work of being able to like spotlight them individually, whether it was benefits for the players themselves and things that you've seen them do, or just for the growth of your program in general? What have you seen?
Yeah, like, so one of the best things, and it's not official yet, so I can't go into too much detail, but one of the best things is that we actually received an opportunity to play in an Thanksgiving Invitational against the National JUCO, based off of the players that just the Instagram and Twitter response that we were getting off of the videos that we were creating for our girls. The excitement that was generated based off of our incoming players. We're the only team in our conference that has this opportunity. We'll also be playing a D2 school in a scrimmage. That's huge for us. We'll also be playing. We were working on getting an NAIA on our schedule. Like those types of things are huge because it creates that exposure. I mean, it would not have been possible if it wasn't for these girls' talent and being able to, how easily it is to market them. Because otherwise we just would have been another NWAC team, that National JUCO would have overlooked and wouldn't have thought twice about putting into their invitational. But they're actually excited to play against us. They're actually, a team that went 30-1 is excited to play against lowly Edmonds College because of the way that we marketed our players, and they're excited to see what we're bringing to the table. And like that type of stuff to me is it's awesome. It's cool. And so for just things like that, that's cool. The other thing is just the buzz that's being generated and created within, our area right now. Like me and Coach Josh, we went over to the softball game, watching the softball, and we had parents coming up to us, talking to us like, we see what you guys are doing. We're so excited. We can't wait for you guys to build this program back up. It's just a passion. We have a great athletic director who loves women's basketball, who's a huge proponent of women's basketball. Seeing, like I said, just the excitement that's being generated for these girls is beautiful to me. Absolutely beautiful.
And even though it is, from what I'm gathering from what your responses are, it is a little bit of work. It seems that once that excitement gets going, and once you started to kind of like lay that groundwork there, once the excitement builds, I feel like it just becomes so much more like infectious to want to keep doing it and want to keep, spotlighting all these things and highlighting all these things. And even though it is, and I'll let you speak to this, even though it is a bunch of work in terms of, kind of putting some of the content out there and posting it, it doesn't seem like a lot of the things necessarily require, advanced like skills with like technology or like these really like intricate things that are going on. It's just like these kind of like little creative things that once you kind of put the work in, like it's fun to do, but it also just really shows all of like the cool things that your players are doing and your program is doing, but it doesn't seem like it's something that's like necessarily complicated to do, if that
No.
makes sense.
Yeah. No, you hit the nail on the head. So is it time consuming? Absolutely. But I lay in the bed, I'll watch some shows with my wife, and I'm sitting on my computer and I'm putting all this together. So that's our quality time together. But at the end of the day, it's like it's not that difficult. And if you're passionate about what you're doing, it's super. I can't explain to you how rewarding it is to receive a call from a player or a text from a player or their mom. One mom telling me that she was in tears after seeing the video created for her daughter. Like that type of stuff is like, take away the marketing aspect of it. Just realize that a lot of these girls haven't even had someone take that time to show them appreciation, to show them love. And at the end of the day, that especially we're 2 male coaching staff with 1 female incoming assistant coach. Our job, like if we are here, our job is to empower these girls, these young ladies, because our job is to have them walk out of this school knowing their worth, not doubting their worth, not worrying about needing another person to help them stand. And so for us, it's like, let me like when I tell these girls, I make these videos and make the graphics for them. It's like, this is you. When I show the graphic of all these accolades, state champion, 3.9 GPA, I didn't do that. I just typed it. I'm not the one who did that. You did that. I'm just amplifying what you did. When I put those highlights together, I didn't do that crossover move. I didn't do that back to the basket spin. That's you. I'm just amplifying what you did. And so I think just that sense of appreciation that comes from that, for me, is the ultimate reward. And then, I show my wife, I show my kids the videos beforehand, because I got to get their approval. And when I show them, it's like, oh yeah, that's cool, Dad. Or, baby, that looks good. And then, like I said, so it's rewarding. And again, yes, this is about marketing, but also like to that part of it, just knowing how you're able to touch a young lady, to give that person confidence, like to make them start to see themselves in a different light, and to continue to build upon that. So when they walk away from the school, they're leaving a stronger, more empowered woman. Like that's the win. No, like that's marketing. It doesn't get better than that for me.
I get the sense, and I see it too, and I'm getting the sense from our conversation that overall, in looking at the landscape of girls basketball, as somebody who is a girls basketball coach myself, it feels like there is a big self-confidence issue within our girls game right now. And there's a lot of girls who, and you have mentioned this before, who don't feel empowered by the game, or the game hasn't really empowered them or made them feel necessarily maybe the most positive, or maybe even given them the most positive experience even if they are being successful. And that seems to be something that maybe could be overlooked. And I think it definitely exists on the men's side as well. But I think that it just seems like this might be a national, if not greater, issue where a lot of our women just don't feel like either their voices are being heard, or as individuals, they're not having as positive of an experience with basketball as they maybe should. That's kind of like the feeling I'm getting overall.
Yeah. And for me, to not put coaches into a box. One of the things that I've heard from a lot of the recruits that I speak to is that, this past 2 years in our world has been very stressful. It has been very, there's been a lot of letdowns. There's been a lot of just really tough, situations due to COVID, pandemic, this lockdown, seasons being lost, games being lost. And I'm hearing, when I talk to a lot of these girls, that, these coaches that they have been really in the just like, whether it be musical chairs with coaches coming in and out during their high school careers, whether it be, coaches dealing with the higher level of stress. And I just think that, we have to find ways to nurture, especially young ladies. Like, we have to find ways to understand that they are different beings, that we need to show love. We need to show compassion. We need to be understanding. One of the things that we're incorporating, shout out to William Payne and his podcast. There was the women's coach from University of Denver that was on, and they were talking about, providing mental days for their girls each week. And it's like little things that you just don't think about, but it's like, yes, like we have to understand that like these times aren't normal anymore. And the girls that are on our campus, they're the ones who have suffered the most right now, because they've had, their high school, missed out sophomore, junior year of high school. They've had seasons and games canceled. They've had these, we're going to start back in June and we're going to get going. And yeah, never mind. No, we're not.
Yeah, of course.
And so it's like, for me, it's a lot about, we have to stop what we're doing and realize that these are still kids. These are humans. And we have to take a step back and just show compassion, show love, because these kids are going to fall out of love really quickly with it. Another thing I'll say about that situation as well is I also, and I experienced this on my own end with the AAU side, due to COVID, the dates and times in which, we were able to actually go live in the live periods, not this past season, but the season before, was drastically condensed. And I think it was irresponsibly done, where they were trying to fit a bunch of basketball in a year's worth of basketball into 4 months. And I think a lot of players in general just became mentally drained, because it's like, okay, we do this 4 months of playing nonstop tournaments. We're traveling every single week, where it used to be we would travel maybe once a month, twice a month at most. Now we're traveling every single week. And if we're not traveling, we're playing in tournaments. And if we're being asked to pull in multiple different directions, and everything else like that. And I think just mentally, these players they've been through a lot. I don't envy any of these kids, for what they've had to go through. And so for us, I think it's just a lot about just showing compassion, to lead with our heart opposed to our ego. When it comes to this coaching stuff, if, a girl walks into the gym and she looks down, don't berate her, pull her to the side and say, hey, you want to talk? If she doesn't want to talk, it's okay. Like, do you want to be here at practice today? Because if you don't, it's okay. And have that be okay. Understanding that every player might need a mental day, might need a day to themselves, to just, where they can just focus on them, and it's okay. So yeah, that's for me, I think that's kind of some of the issues.
Well, and I think to add on to that, and I completely agree, it's also important as coaches, and I know a lot of coaches do a really good job on it, but I also know a lot of coaches are kind of looking at their program like big picture, and they're trying to rush to get their program back on track. And so, you said, trying to fit in 2 years worth of work into 6 months because of all the time that they lost. And it's really quickly to burn players out. And I think that sports, or in general, could be one of those things that, over the past couple of years, players can kind of go on the fence on, if they have all these other things going on in their life and these other things happening. Like basketball can just become a burden and just become a chore and just another thing on their list that they have to do because of how stressed and potentially tired they are from other things. So kind of circling that back, really, especially now, like you said, to take that time to market and highlight players. And because not only do they deserve it and they should be highlighted, but also it's like you said, right, it's been a rough couple of years for them. So having these things highlighted and being able to share what they're doing, it probably now more than ever could probably mean so much more to them.
Yeah, I agree. 1,000%. Yeah.
So what do you think high school coaches in particular can do? I know it's kind of similar, because at a JUCO you're also really want to make sure your players are getting the exposure and all the cool things about them, so they can potentially move on after Edmonds. But focusing on high school coaches in particular, what advice would you give to those listening? And I know we have a lot who do, for things that maybe they specifically can do if they have players who they know have the ability to potentially play at the next level. What are some things you think they can do to kind of help their players get seen or get noticed? And I'll start with that first one there.
Yeah, I think the number one thing is getting getting those players that you identify in the recruiting service site. So whether it be field level, NCAA, like one of those, like just one of those recruiting avenues. Make sure they have a huddle. Make sure that they have on their Twitter. I know every kid wants to have a Twitter and they want to follow their favorite musical artists, and they want to follow, they want to post all this crazy stuff, but make sure they have a professional Twitter account as well, where it's just about themselves as athletes. And I think we have to help them with that type of stuff, where, when you go on their Twitter page, you see, the link talks about, it takes you right to their huddle page, or it takes you right to their field level page. And then, it talks about the year that they graduated. It talks about their position, their height, their GPA, all that good stuff. Getting players to recognize the level that they want to play at, and then go follow those types of programs that they want to be a part of. Follow the training staff, follow the coaches, follow the administrators, follow the athletic directors, follow everybody you possibly can to kind of create that network. Another thing that I think is overlooked a lot is making sure those high school players have filled out their financial aids. Get financial aid taken care of, because one of the first questions that's always going to be asked is going to be around financial aid. What does that look like? And just helping these girls, because again, that opens up more doors. But for me, I think it's huge. Like I said, the field levels and making the highlight tapes. A key for highlight tapes, that I've learned is either instrumentals or make sure it's a clean version. Don't have it be a distraction. I've seen that a lot as well. But again, like I think a lot of these tools you can work with, especially at the high school level. I think you can work with the player and their family to help build that marketing aspect of it for them. Like I said, if you have games and get the clips, cut it out and then post those. Coaches, we love it. I can't, when there's a girl that I'm recruiting and she's in my recruits on field level, I go and I look and I see she has a new video. For me, I'm like, oh, this is exciting. And I think, I hope no one else sees it.
Yeah, right.
Like, I hope no one else sees it.
I get it.
But I think just those are huge things. And talk to all your players too about the levels of basketball. One of the things that I see a lot happening is girls want to play, and I think it's the same thing with males as well, the boys players. They want to play at the highest level. I want to play D1, regardless of what that actually means to me. Maybe I can go get that D1 offer, but I'm probably not going to touch the floor. Is that really where you want to be? Like talking with your players to understand what's more important, to say that you're playing at a certain level, or saying that you're playing at a level in which you're out there on the floor and you're playing and you're growing. I think that's one of the hardest parts about coaching at a JUCO, is that a lot of these kids hear JUCO and they immediately turn their nose to it because that's just traditionally what you do. And it's like, no, like if you really look at the JUCO level, it's beautiful. You get to go and get your associate's degree, the same class that you would go take at University of Washington, all these other schools, Central, all these schools that you would go to. You get your associate's degree, and now you get to, instead of you just taking that lonely D2 offer that you had coming out of high school, where in those situations you're not able to pick and, like, you got to have options. If the only option I have is this D2, but I really don't gel with that coach very well. I don't really like that philosophy, or they don't have my major, but I just got to take it because I have to take this best offer. Go to JUCO. Go to JUCO for 1 to 2 years, and now you got 5 or 6 offers on the table where you can actually take your time and find the actual fit for you. And now your game is at the level where it's a fit for you. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that it's like you said, it's what, and I've had this conversation with other coaches too before, and they talk about the college experiences, what ultimately is that player looking to do, because of, as we all know, there's not a lot of players necessarily that are going to go pro. So what are they trying to go to college for? What is their overall like college experience going to look like? And to kind of plug Edmonds College and college is similar to that. I think that by having an experience like that versus like at a D2 or even at, a D1 where they might not touch the floor is probably it could be a lot more personalized for them, that experience, having that like smaller experience, and they won't necessarily get drowned out in a huge university, especially in the basketball side where they can be more of like, local celebrities and local stars, right? Because they're in the smaller environment, and people get to know, I feel like people get to almost know them more on a personal level, but I know you can speak to that.
Yeah, no, and that's absolutely what it is. We have players who sit at Edmonds, again, like I said, that people are excited and they're buzzing about, and no disrespect to the situation, but if some of these girls were going to hire D2, going to D2s, NAIAs, I don't think that the excitement would be the same for them. They would just be another face within the crowd. They're great players, but it's just like, I think that's the beauty of coming to somewhere like Edmonds, is to where to any of these JUCOs, is the fact that you're in a good situation to where you can continue to thrive. And what I love about it is, one of the hardest transitions academically for a lot of these kids is, you go from high school to college and you're sitting in an auditorium as a classroom. And, the beauty of a place like Edmonds is, you're sitting in the classroom with 30 kids. And so you can still have that intimate relationship with your professor as you navigate this new lifestyle. Because now, you step on campus in September, that's basketball season starts September. We're practicing in September. It's not like high school. There isn't this 2-minute pause, and then basketball season, actually ends, mid-March. And then once the season ends, we're right back at it. We're going again. And, one of the hardest transitions for our players are academically is going from that in that winter quarter, because it's like you're finishing up finals in the winter, and you got these tournaments, these games, and league play starts in January, and there's just a lot of tax, a lot of demand on you. And so being able to do that at the JUCO level kind of slows that down a little bit, so you can start to build that muscle memory in regards to being able to manage all of that. And then now you go take that skill set as a sophomore or junior to that 4-year, and it just sets you up so much more for better success, to where it's, you're already kind of matured into understanding time management. I mean, you can do a whole podcast on time management. I'm sure. But yeah, it's one of those things where, you just have to, like with JUCO, I think it's a beautiful avenue, because it kind of, like you said, you're a big fish still, here, there's lots of opportunity here still. And like I said, and it's a lot less of a business, at this point. It's just about, honestly, it's about the kids, and it's about the game. Like, for Josh and I, it's like we're in a situation where we both have full-time tech jobs, like I keep mentioning, and it's like, so for us, this is a passion that we have that's like running through us. This isn't a business to us. In no shape or form is this a business. This is about us being able to help, these young ladies move on in their lives, and us being positive Black males who they can look to and say, you know what, Coach Shawn believed in me, Coach Josh believed in me, and I believe in myself, and I have this strength and power that I didn't know that I had. I have this voice that I didn't know that I had before. And like I said, for us, that's the win, man. Like, that's the win.
I mean, it's hard, and I think one of the hardest parts sometimes, and is for me, and I'm sure maybe for others listening, is you get so caught up with the program itself, and the team aspect of things, and the team being bigger than the individuals, that I know I've definitely lost sight of the individual players themselves, and really just been focusing on the overall team and overall, like, the bigger picture and bigger concepts. That I think one of the nice things about dedicating that time and spending that time promoting and talking about all the cool things that your players are doing is that it really does force you as a coach to make sure that you don't just focus all of your time necessarily on the big picture on the program, but you really do make sure that you're giving that attention. Because I know for me, if I didn't do that, or I didn't, block out time to make sure I'm promoting my individual players, I know that time could get away from me, and all of a sudden maybe weeks or months could go by and I haven't really been giving that attention or spotlighting those players because my mind has just been so focused on big picture. And I think that is kind of one of the things that hopefully that's not done intentionally by coaches, where they're always just focusing on the program, but it feels like it's definitely something that could get away from you if you don't dedicate the time to it. And then all of a sudden players might go in and out of your program. You're like, oh, I never really took the time to really promote them. Then time just kind of got away from me.
Yeah. No, I mean, and for me, whenever I'm recruiting with a young lady and I'm talking with their family, I'm talking to them, like my biggest thing is to make sure nothing I say is BS. And, so when I'm telling, we all, everybody has their spiel, the way that they talk to people. But for me, it's like, I just want to make sure I always remain authentic in everything that I say. So I got to hold myself accountable to where if I'm telling a girl that I'm going to do this, then I follow through with that.
Sure.
And it's not lip service, because I think that's what leads to a lot of, unhappiness and when you're making promises to individuals and you're not able to live up to that. One of the things that Josh and I do, we don't care how good you are as a player. We tell every single girl, there's nothing guaranteed at all as far as playing time. The only thing that you're going to find that's guaranteed is that we are going to love you. We're going to encourage you. We're going to push you to be the best version of yourself that we can. We are always going to be supportive of you, whether you're in a program or not in a program. Our program, we're always going to have your back. That's our guarantees. And so just staying true to that. So for me, those times, like I said, where I might feel personally, like if I might feel tired or worn out and not wanting to do something for our individual player because I just want to relax or go to my son's basketball game, I think about that commitment that I made to those players as well. And I find that strength to get that done. Because again, one thing that I want people to be able to say about me is that I always kept it real, always kept it 100. If I said I was going to do something, I did it. And always to be, a key word for me that I use in my life is just being consistent. And so, that for me, it's really important. But I also understand the other flip side of it. Like life happens, right? Like you said, you can lose track of time. And then next thing you know, that player is out of is getting out of the program. So like I said, it's really difficult at times. One of the things I do for myself is I do have a calendar. I follow that calendar. In that calendar, I say, make sure I spotlight this person, or make sure that I'm reaching out to this recruit today. Make sure I'm reaching out to this player today. Just those little reminders. And what I've learned is, especially when it comes to like that player connection, little touches are great, man. Just hey, how's your day going? Like
something that's
just
real simple, but means a lot.
Real simple. But I realized is I like to talk a lot. Most of these girls don't like talking a lot. Most of them, like they just, hey coach, how's it going? It's good. How's your mom? Mom's doing great. All right. Well, if you need anything, we're here for you. We got you. Thanks, coach. I appreciate you. And a smiley face, and their bucket feels full. And that was 1 minute worth of text messages to where your player feels that you truly care, and you yourself like feel like you care, because also in those 1 minute conversations you could find out things that you might not have found out about a player. You might find out something that's going on in their life. They might start to confide in you because you were consistent in their life, and there's someone that they could trust to have those conversations with. And again, I think that falls back to our responsibility as being coaches, to these young ladies.
Yeah, that's awesome. Coach, to wrap up, there's a couple questions I ask every guest. So I'll go ahead and start with this first one here. Thinking back on your coaching career, what is a moment from your coaching career that you think others listening would be able to learn from?
Yeah, I think for me, I think, going back to our previous season that we just had, just staying in the fight. Like, there's moments, there's peaks and valleys with coaching. And there's like I said, especially dealing with this COVID situation and all that, like, it was very difficult last year where, games were being canceled, players were struggling mentally and everything else like that. Players were struggling physically because their bodies were being pushed in ways that just it hadn't been before. We're shutting them down. Then we're like, all right, everybody back in the gym, and we got a game next week too. Just all that type of stuff. So just for me, it's a lot about just staying in the fight, just staying there. There's going to be times like these seasons are long. There's times where you feel like you can be losing your team. Just stay connected. Because one of the things I always learned is that it's never as bad as you really think it is unless you ignore it. So it's like being able to identify when you start to see a leak and be able to try to cover that leak up, to be able to make sure that everything is good, to, like I said, spend time with your players and get to know them beyond just being basketball players, get to know them as people. I feel like some of the best relationships that I have is just from getting to know players, and just getting to know their families and who they are. So for me, like I said, I think the biggest takeaway I've had of recent is just staying in the fight, even when things seem really, really dark, and to not ignore, when you start to see like things sprouting out, but instead attack them head on, but attack it in a way in which it's not negative, attack it in a way in which it's not, you trying to be, combative, but more so just attack it in a way of just with love, and understanding. And I think it goes a long way.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's been hard, I know, these past couple of years sometimes to do it, but I think that I think you can really tell those programs and those coaches who really did, like you said, stick through it these past couple of years. I think their programs and the experience their players are having now is probably just going to be that much better and that much great because of the perseverance that those coaches had, and really just staying connected. And like you said, just kind of pushing through it. It's been rough, but keeping that energy up and keeping those spirits up, I think has really done a lot. And I really commend all those coaches who've been able to do that. Awesome.
Absolutely.
To wrap up, Coach, I give every guest what I call a 60-second soapbox, kind of your platform to get out a final message, a closing thought, just a closing idea you want to leave the listeners with. And don't worry, I'm not timing you, so you can go over 60 seconds too, so no worries. But I'm going to give you the floor, and I'm going to let you kind of take it from here.
All right, awesome. Well, if you heard me talk, I'll probably go over 60 seconds.
That's all good.
I'll try my best
No
not to here. So for me, I wanted to leave with this acronym that we go by here at Edmonds going forward. And the acronym is HERE. And for here, us, HERE represents, our team and what we're trying to do. So the H stands for humble. For us, we want young ladies to come to this program and be humble, be willing listeners, be willing learners, to come into this situation not feeling like anything, like they're the greatest things in the world, but just come in just humble. E is that they're encouraging, that they're encouraging others, they're encouraging to themselves. If a teammate is down, they're picking them up. Just to come in just with that positive, just encouraging attitude in the way that they handle themselves. The R is, being respectful, whether it's with your coaches, whether it's, with the referees, your teammates, your teachers, everything, just being very, very respectful. And then the last E for us is evolving. That's huge. I think you heard me say that earlier in the podcast, the word evolving. Like for us, it's just being constant growth, like constantly trying to better yourself. And to me, like that's huge. And when we talk about here, yes, initially you'll associate that to basketball, but we also associate that to just life in general. We feel like you should always be humble. You should always be encouraging. You should always be respectful, and it's always to be evolving. You can have the most talented team out there, but for us personally, we feel like if those characteristics right there are missing, then you're not going to find success. And so again, like for us, like that's what it is. So here, humble, encouraging, respectful, and evolving. So that's just kind of like for me, kind of the acronym that we go by. I encourage all coaches to create something like it's kind of like their own little mission statement, something that they want to hold their players accountable to. Yeah, I know it's cute to make it as an acronym, but just make sure you always have something to where the girls can just tie to, or the young man can tie to. And like I said, for us, here is important because here also represents being present, being in the moment, and that's huge for us.
Well, I hope you don't mind if I wrote that down and my look at that. Hey, and also another cool thing is on slogans and having acronyms is they kind of go well on shirts and things like that too. So hey, it serves that purpose too. So
They absolutely do.
That's awesome. Coach Sims, I want to thank you for spending some time talking about Edmonds College, talking about the work you and your program does, JUCO marketing, highlighting players, spotlighting players. We covered a lot here, so I appreciate it. It sounds like you guys got a great thing going. Best of luck to all the new recruits I know you got coming in next year. I know you'll do a great job with them and continue doing the great things you're doing. Thank you so much, Coach. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Coach Mike, for this platform. Go Tritons.
Thank you guys so much for listening. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. We will see you guys next.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.